Welcome to the latest edition of the Food Systems Podcast, brought to you by the Forum for the Future of Agriculture. My name is Mark Titterington. I'm the co-founder and director of the Forum, and it's my great pleasure today to welcome to the show Jörg-Andreas Krüger, president of the National Biodiversity and Conservation Union in Germany, who has joined recently as a strategic partner of the Forum. Jörg-Andreas, very warm welcome indeed. I wonder if you might just start by telling us a little bit about NABU and why for you've decided to join the Forum, where you see the synergies are and what impact you hope to make.
Yeah, thank you very much for the warm welcome, Mark. It's really a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure for us and an honor to be a new strategic partner. NABU, for all the audience who didn't know us, we are a volunteer-driven organization in Germany. We are now 125 years old. We have around 950,000 members and supporters. So we are quite a large organization, and we are very proud that we still have 77,000 volunteers being active in around 2,000 local groups. And in addition to that, local work in the villages and in the regions, we have some institutes doing research for around some questions of agriculture, of forestry, of freshwater management systems. And from these institutes, we learn and we try to transfer the results of the research into the political discussion and into the discussion with companies. And for us, it's really important to find new partners and new platforms to discuss the ideas for the transformation of the food and agricultural sector. We all know that we have a lot of challenges ahead of us, and we have the feeling that the discussion only in the political arena are sometimes a little bit traditional, a little bit backwards, and not really focused on the solutions which we need.
Now, I know we spent some time together, Jörg-Andreas, when you were with us at the annual conference in March, and it was great to have you on stage and discuss with you afterwards. I was struck by that conversation about what inspires you to do this role. I'm also struck by what you said about your activists, particularly at the local level. What is it that inspires them about and you about NABU and what you're trying to achieve?
For all of us in NABU, it is important that we want to develop a good land use system, a good land management system, a good agricultural system, which have a good balance between the income of the farmers, between the production of good quality food and the production and the maintenance of ecosystem services and populations. We want to see biodiversity-rich regions. And at the end, we want to have healthy soil, we want to have good freshwater management, we want to have more lapwings and skylarks and hedges in the landscapes. And for that, we need instruments and partners. And how do we do that at the most efficient way? Maybe at a more modern way than in the past, maybe in a way with more technical solutions, with digital solutions. That is where we have to sit together with the colleagues from the farmers associations, with the practitioners from the agribusiness and from the food sector. And we shouldn't focus only on the discussion with the political sector. I think that is the big learning of the last 10 years.
Quite right. I mean, we were in Strasbourg last week at the first session of the European Parliament, and certainly one of the things that I was trying to get across there, Jörg-Andreas, is that there is limits to what policy can do. Policy can certainly enable; it's part of the piece, but it's bringing those different actors together, as you said, to achieve what I think is a shared objective, which is a thriving landscape, both economically and environmentally, and I think that's what you were getting at there.
Yeah, and I mean, what we learned in Germany as well is that we found an example for that. For 3 years, we worked with other organizations in the Commission on the Future of German Agriculture. And after 10, 15, 20 years of discussions between the farmers associations and NABU and other environmental NGOs, and some demonstrations in the streets against each other, we found solutions together. And now we are sitting together on the one side of the table, and the politicians are at the other side of the table, and we bring together the experience of both aspects. NABU knows how we can produce more skylarks, more freshwater systems, more healthy soils. And the farmers, they know how to produce food. They know about the costs of activities. And so the coalition of the practitioners from nature conservation, from ecosystems, from farming, and from dealing with the products, then on the one hand, and then the discussion together with the politicians, I guess that is the key for the future.
I love the way that you describe that, Jörg-Andreas. It's very close to the ethos of the forum, how we developed, how we tried to learn from examples like the one that you just shared in Germany. As you know, we published our own call to action about 18 months ago now, which contains a number of steps that we think are necessary to transform the system. Alignment of public and private incentives is certainly part of that. In order to drive action, whether it be on regenerative agriculture or on valuing and accounting for natural capital, which you've just described. We, as you know, just published our first annual report on this. I'm curious, Jörg-Andreas, to hear how you think some of the actions that are in the call to action, and perhaps some that aren't, aligns with what NABU is doing, what your work and your plans are, and how you think you might be able to contribute going forward to the work of the forum.
I was really happy as I read the call to action for the first time, since I found we are completely in line. So we are working on the same aspects, and we have, I think, a good shared understanding of the questions which we have to discuss in the near future. And I mean, if I go more into the details in the call to action, then we are at the moment already there that we start to develop our own methods to find measurement system and metrics to think about ecosystem services and how to value them, how to bring them in a methodical with a methodology into a system which can help farmers to get payments for ecosystem services. We do that with at the moment within contracts with some farmers where it's the question of organic soils and how we can preserve the organic soil with a lot of fresh water in the soil and a high groundwater level. And so we want to share these experiences, and we want to get challenged by other experts in the discussions which we will have together. And other things are our cooperations, which we have already with some large companies, where we as well have contracts with farms and farmers, and where we can bring field experience and the experience of value chains and supply chains, so that we have some really concrete things where we can discuss about further development.
Makes a lot of sense, Jörg-Andreas, and we're certainly looking forward to having you not only with us but contributing in that way. I wonder if I just pull us back a little bit to the policy environment. It does play a critical role. Some elements I'd like to touch on there. You know, for you, when you look at it now, maybe from a German perspective, but also more broadly from the European Union perspective. We've got a new European Parliament. Ursula von der Leyen has been re-elected for a second term as Commission President. What are the critical points that you think we need to progress on? I'd say over the next 5 years, but of course the horizon is longer than that. Be great to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I think there are two large points. The one thing is, and that is the white elephant in the room, how can we have progress in the implementation of the Green Deal? I mean, Ursula von der Leyen starts her first turn with her man on the moon moment, the Green Deal. And I guess the goals of the Green Deals are still widely shared by the population and the politicians. But we have heard from many parties during the election campaigns just what they don't want. And the bigger question is now, so what do we want? How can we change? I mean, nobody can say that there are no challenges for the agricultural and food system. And if we don't act now, the pressure on solutions and the risk of very fast changes then is becoming too high. So politicians now have to come back to the discussion. what do we want? How can we achieve this? Maybe in slightly different ways than we discussed in the last 5 years. But we have to go back to the table. And that means as well talking about money and talking about the reform of the common agricultural policies at the Brussels level. We all know, and all experts say, that the old system is not bringing the best results. We have often talked about harmful subsidies and all these things. But what is the best and the most responsible way, responsible for the ecosystem, but responsible for the farmers as well, to change that system more into the direction of a payment system for ecosystem services? Agriculture, farms and farmers are producing so much value to the society when they do their job right. And we have to talk to the politicians so that we have the right frame for the farmers so that they can deliver all that. And that means that we have to discuss as well the new systems. I mean, we have all the discussions about regenerative farming. And for us, it's a key role or key way to have a path towards efficient water management, healthy and fertile soils, and the climate adaptation and all these things. And we can overcome these old black and white discussions between conventional and organic farming. And so there are many, many aspects, but we have to have kind of good system, good legal system, good money system for these farms who are going this way. Otherwise, that can't work. And so having this one part coming from the past and that have to be developed in the future, we have the other part, and that is really the innovative finance models. We all know that many systems are thinking about payments out of supply chains and value chains. We have the certification discussions from the climate sector coming now more into the biodiversity sector as well. We have systems like the Science-Based Target Initiative around, and there's a Science-Based Target System for nature, and we have the reports coming out of the regulation like the CSRD. So there is a lot of development in the markets, and there are enormous amounts of money which the people have already in mind, what they want to invest to neutralize their emissions from the scope 3, for example. But how to bring that in a safe way really into practice? At the moment, it's a lot of theory, and we have learned about these innovative finance models in the climate sector that we all can make many mistakes. And so that have to be developed very carefully. And I guess we have to work on some European-wide legislation so that we have the same frame for solutions, and that we have a good fundament for the discussions with other part and countries of the world.
So much in what you said there, Jörg-Andreas, which fits, I think, with certainly some of the work that the forum has been doing about how we systemically align these public and private incentives. As you touched on a number of them there, that from sustainability premiums for crops, certification, and so forth, that we can bring in, and actually, I think if we can find a way to integrate them together, we can grow the share of the pie that the farmer receives, not just for producing the crops, but for the environmental outcomes that we desire. So, a lot of what you said there certainly resonates with with me personally, and also with what the forum has been doing, and also, as you say, there's something about just a general dissatisfaction across the piece with where we are with the system that we have. But as you also touched on there, some of it is in the how we go about forging a new consensus, and certainly looking forward to working with you and many colleagues on how we progress that. I wonder also, Jörg-Andreas, if we could build on or extract some of your experience. We've obviously got the strategic dialogue now taking place at the European level, which I think it's probably fair to say, bears some resemblance, if not has mirrored what you went through in Germany. Just if that's true, what are your learnings in terms of what happened after the report in Germany was published? How did you take forward the implementation? Any thoughts on what you'd avoid, lessons learned, and what we should concentrate on to make it a success in terms of the implementation?
Yeah, that is a very good and important point. I mean, we had the extraordinary situation that we had these commission working on the future during Corona. So there
Yeah.
was a limitation of traveling. So we all had more time since we were forced to work there as presidents. So the CEOs and the presidents have to work on the texts on their own, which is not the normal and the usual way. So,
Yeah.
but it was the time to build trust. And that
Mm.
is what we have still in Germany. I mean, I will come later to the disappointments after we finalize the report. But what we still have is that we have, even if we have discussions and angry debates in the public, like with the farmers' protests in late winter this year, we still have the direct connection. We have the meetings together, for example, between the heads of the environmental NGOs and the Farmers Association, and so on. So there is something where we still build on. We have our differences in the public, but we are still in a trust, and we have the fundament for a good solution. The next learning is a report like the report which we have published is always a well-balanced package. But if it comes to implementation, the first step of an implementation is can never be well balanced. It's just the first step. And that's why you need the trust then between the partners. That's the second step, which bring the first more into the balance between some economic and some ecologic things, for example. If the trust is there, then everybody will wait and have the patience. But is the trust not there, then it can't work in the implementation phase. And that's what we learned in Germany a little bit. We finalized the report at the end of a period in the parliament. 8 weeks later, we had a new parliament and then a new government. And the new government said, "Oh, thank you for the report. It's impressive, but it's not really our agenda." And so what we have seen is that the German government have not implemented a lot from the report. And that is the frustration among the partner organizations of the report. And that means for me that maybe in a future commission, we have to involve politicians at an earlier stage so that they have their kind of share on the report. And it's not just a report coming from the outside in the political arena with a perfect solution. And the politicians are just the people who have to implement what other people have developed and discussed. So really implement the political sector, not at the end, do it a little bit earlier. That is my key learning. And the other thing is really, if a report is now 3 years old and we have next year the next general elections in Germany,
Mm.
what we have to do now is that we bring the report back into the discussion at the political arena in Germany, so that we have then the chance with the next parliament and the next government really to work more on implementation with the learnings out of this legislative period, where we have seen all these unforeseeable things like the Russian war and so on. So we have to rebuild a little bit the report and invite politicians more into the discussion. Otherwise, they will not implement it. That is my key learning.
Yeah, well, I mean, really appreciate you sharing that with us, for those that are directly involved, but also those of us that would hope to play a role and contribute to its implementation. There's a couple of things you said there that certainly resonated with me. One, the importance of trust. And I
Yes.
think, we have lost that a little bit. And I hope that process that we have at the European level and indeed elsewhere, we begin to restore that. But I think I also heard you say that, the report in and of itself is not it's not an end point. It's perhaps the end of the beginning. The hard work is to be done in terms of how you do the implementation and ensure that the momentum that comes out of that is indeed sustained.
Yeah, and may I can add something about the trust. I mean,
Mm.
what we see at the moment is that is not only a missing trust between these bigger parts on organizations like farmers associations on the one hand, and maybe NGOs on the other hand. It is what we find deeply in our societies. And I strongly believe that we have to develop and build up the trust new. And it's not only a work at which we do at the federal German level in Germany, but we have to do it at farm level, at local village level. And for that, we have to bring the people on the ground together as well. I mean, that is something what we really have to have in mind in the discussions with the politicians as well. We have to organize meeting points and meeting necessities between farmers, NGOs, local authorities, and they have to discuss their local ecologic and economic situations, since we're always talking about the agricultural sector, and we all know between Sicily and Poland is a large difference in agricultural business, and that is something what we have in Germany as well. And at the end, people are convincing people, not papers, not organizations, not governments. It's just people in direct contact. And our task is now at the Brussels level, at the Berlin level, to develop a framework where these can happen.
Mm-hmm. That's such encouraging words, and also, if I may say, wise counsel, Jörg-Andreas. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. As we kind of come to the end of our conversation, I mean, struck that we're all on the kind of cusp of what I hope is a summer break, a restful summer break coming up for us all. As perhaps you reflect on kind of where we are and perhaps take some downtime yourself, what is it that's exciting you about the next year or so in front of us? And maybe so that we end on the positive, maybe you finish with the excitement. What concerns you? What do we really need to address as we come back from the summer break?
Okay, yeah. Starting with a concern, that is what I have already mentioned. I have the concern that out of the protests which we have seen, coming out of the protests which we have seen late winter, it will be sometimes difficult in some of the regions, at least, to come back to progressive discussion. And so we have to bring the people back to the tables, back to the discussions together, and not protesting against each other. Since we have seen, I mean, I share a lot of the negative feelings of the farmers, and I see the negative examples for regulation, drafts, and so on. But at the end, it's nothing what the protests have really changed. The reaction of the political sector was very professional. Yes, they changed some things with a high visibility, but it's not that there is a change in the challenges for the farmings and for the farmers. And that's why I'm a little bit concerned how big is the frustration there between the protesting farmers, and how can we bring them back to the tables? And on the other hand, I mean, I'm traveling a lot in Germany. I meet a lot of farmers. I meet a lot of local farmers associations. I have always the contact to our local groups. I'm in direct contact with many business colleagues from large retailers, from the food industry, and they are all open, and they are all at the end have the same understanding of the challenges before us. And yes, we have to find wise solutions for the balance between ecology and the economy and so on. But they are all willing to do that at a very high professional level. And we have to find and create these platforms. And my hope is that we have these platforms with a forum, or at least one of these necessary and needed platforms. And that's why I'm really looking forward to have these discussions and bring into the power of our organization and our expertise. And yes, we will change that, since there is no alternative in not trying it, at least.
Well, quite right. That there isn't an alternative to that. I fully agree with that. I think the thing that excites me, Jörg-Andreas, is I've never seen a greater interest in what we are all collectively trying to do in the food and agriculture system. I think sometimes we get overwhelmed a little bit by the scale of the task that's in front of us, but like you, I believe that in putting people together, it's people that change things, not papers. And if we do that, we'll have a decent shot at getting to where we all want to be. I've just loved this conversation, Jörg-Andreas. I would love at some point in the future to join you also on your tours of different groups in Germany. But for now, I will say again a warm welcome to the forum. I can already see from this conversation the contribution that NABU and yourself and your colleagues will make. It's great to have you with us, and thank you for taking the time and joining us on the Food Systems Podcast.
Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the discussions.
Fantastic. Thanks again. You've been listening to another edition of the Food Systems Podcast, brought to you by the Forum for the Future of Agriculture. Join us again next time after the summer break.